when and how are teens making sense of same-sex attractions, and then how might that inform the ministry that we're doing. So a good bit of this is going to be out of Mark Yarhouse's book, Understanding Sexual Identity. So if you haven't read it, please do so. But he talks about that adolescence is a time of significant physical and cognitive and social development. And teens are asking a lot of questions. But two of the big questions they're asking is, who am I and where do I belong? This is no less true for people who experience same-sex attraction. These are the big questions they're asking too. And I don't think this has to be any more challenging for people who experience same-sex attraction if we provide them with the understanding and the tools to make sense of these questions and we support them from a young age to do that well. But I think what we'll see as we go further is that we cannot wait until someone comes out to us, until someone shares with us about their same-sex attraction to talk about these topics. So I'm going to share with you the sexual identity development stages that he shares about in his book, that Mark Yarhouse shares about. And with each of these, I'll share with you typical milestones in that stage, ages that milestone happens on average, and then what the big questions are that people are asking during those times. And I want to share this with you, one, to demystify the mind and the soul of a teen who experiences same-sex attraction, to get a better sense of where they're at and what questions they're asking and when. But also I think it can inform how we do student ministry. And I'll also note that these numbers come from a study that was published in 2000, so they're a bit dated at this point. So these numbers may be very different today, and likely these are happening earlier in a teen's life than the ages that I'll have up here. So stage one is a stage of identity dilemma. And here, a teen first recognizes that they experience same-sex attraction and are different than their peers. And this is typically ages 12 through 14. The big questions they're asking here is, how do I make sense of how I feel? And what does it say about me that I find this person attractive? For me, I recognize that I experienced same-sex attraction in the 7th grade, but I was terrified about that. And so I basically ignored that as best I could for about 6 years. So, yeah. Stage 2 is kind of labeled the identity development stage. And there's a couple things that happen here. First, experiences of same-sex sexual behavior, disclosure of their sexuality to others, labeling, identifying around their experience in some way, and then first long-term romantic relationships. So first, same-sex sexual behavior typically happens ages 16 and 17. The questions that are being asked here are, what would it mean if I were sexual with this person? Would I like it? Would I regret it? I know for me a big question during these age ranges was, if I did something with a guy, would God still love me? Or would he forsake me completely? It's a really serious fear I had when I was in middle school and high school. And in many ways, that might have been all that was motivating me from not being in a relationship with a guy. And now I look at that idea of God rejecting me and forsaking me as pretty ridiculous. But then it was a real fear. Okay. Other things in stage 2 is around ages 17 and 18 are when people are labeling themselves or identifying around their experience. The questions they're asking here is, how do I name my reality? And then around ages 17 and 18 are also when they're disclosing to another person about their sexuality and asking the question, who can I trust with what I am experiencing? I shared with my parents during my sophomore year of high school, but as I've talked with other people who experience same-sex attraction my same age, that was early compared to a lot of them. But right now I work at the counseling center here at Lipscomb and I'm meeting with college students who this is a part of their story, and many of them shared with their parents earlier than I did. So again, things have changed even in the past decade. All right, stage 3 is the stage of identity synthesis. And here, a teen is typically achieving a stable identity around their attractions that reflects how they experience self, that reflects how they want to be known by others, and that it's congruent with their beliefs and values. And what's also typical in this stage is a first ongoing relationship with someone of the same sex. And their question they're asking here is, how can my intimacy needs be met? And I think this question at the bottom of this slide is really the most important question that we'll be talking about today in different ways throughout the next couple hours. How can my needs for intimacy be met? That's a really important question. And if we don't provide healthy ways for people to meet their intimacy needs, then they're going to default to whatever options that society or others are offering. So here are all of these milestones and the ages lined up kind of in average age order. So what do I notice about these? Well, I notice that all of these are happening in high school. So college is too late to talk about this stuff. I also know from conversations with parents that parents have no idea how to talk about this stuff. So they would like to punt this conversation to you as youth pastors, which I'm sure you love. And disclosure is one of the last steps that occurs. Or at least it happens after someone recognizes their attractions, has first kind of same-sex sexual experimenting, and has a first same-sex relationship. So I think that's important. But I don't want to alarm you too much, because the research that Mark Yarhouse cited also noted that many Christians who experience same-sex attraction didn't have these same milestones. Okay, so only 26% of Christians who experience same-sex attraction reported engaging in same-sex sexual behavior. Only 11% labeled themselves as gay, lesbian, or bisexual, and only 18% were in ongoing same-sex romantic relationships. So Christians who experience same-sex attraction and are teenagers haven't given up on this and haven't given in on this. None of these things were true about me in high school and middle school. None of these milestones occurred for me then. So don't throw in the towel for them. Don't give up on them. So what do we do? Well, I think that because how they think about their same-sex attractions often influences what path they will take. So if a teen assumes that their same-sex attractions mean that they are gay, and that is how they are supposed to be, then they tend to accept a gay identity and tend to then seek out romantic same-sex relationships. But if Christian sexual minorities see that their same-sex attractions are broken, then they tended to adopt a gay identity and engage in behavior significantly less often. Okay, so how should all this inform the youth ministry that we're doing? Well, I think because a lot of these milestones happen before disclosure, our ministry cannot be reactive. Instead, we need to preemptively talk about these questions and provide answers to them before people come out to us. We need to build trust and openness with how we talk about this topic. Okay, we need to demonstrate that we are a place where they can come to us and share with us this is the part of their story. And then we need to be patient as youth make sense of these questions when they do share. If ideally, very soon after they first recognize their same-sex attractions, then they talk to you about this, then you have more time to slowly make sense of these questions. I think an important question here to ask is, what do students who experience same-sex attraction need to hear before they come out? Because if all they hear is that God is against homosexuality, we are setting our children up to either embrace homosexuality or to struggle with deep shame, loneliness, depression, and suicidality, or both. That is what I have seen in my friends' lives and my own lives, that if all my church offers me is God is against homosexuality, then I'm really only being offered that side A or side X that we talked about earlier. A church is not offering me side B. We need to offer something good. We need to offer something better. We need to offer something compelling. So I think they need to hear how God has called all of us to steward our sexualities. I think they need to hear what that means for people who experience same-sex attraction, how that is good for people who experience same-sex attraction, how they still fit in God's story. I think they need to hear the answers to the big questions of how did my same-sex attraction develop? What part did God play and why? What do I do with my attractions? How do I identify? How do I meet my intimacy needs in healthy ways? Those are questions we need to be answering. And then in doing all of this, we need to demonstrate that we are someone they can trust. And we need to specifically and repeatedly invite them to share their story with us or with their parents.